Hello and welcome to lesson number 8 of our personal development. And today we're looking at the connection between mind, body, spirit. If you noticed yesterday, my doorbell rang and we kind of got cut short on the physical body part of our personal development, but I'll tie a little bit of that in today. Okay, so we've unpacked several things already. So we talked about the mean girl, which is basically those negative voices in your head, whether they come from internal or external sources, and just how damaging they are to our overall psyche. And then we looked at just some of the physical manifestations of how we deal with stress. And then we looked at maybe some of the aspects of our soul, our spirit. And so this was a super interesting study that I found. You know, I love things that are sciencey, which is why I love Mary Kay and the science behind her product. Okay, so a Dr. Candace Pert did a study on the effects of mind, body, spirit. And what she found in her work was that on a biochemical level, there's something called neuropeptides. Now, peptides we know about in skincare, and I've always said cells are cells, and so skin and internal cells are actually very connected. Okay, so what she found was these neuropeptides have messenger molecules. Okay, stick with me, this will make sense. These messenger molecules carry signals from the brain to the cells in our body. So basically what's going on in our head is actually being lived out by the cells in our body. Doesn't that make sense? So when we're dealing with things like anxiety and stress, it's things that are happening in our brain that are getting sent to the cells in our body through messenger molecules. Okay. I was the kid that always wanted to find out why everything was the way it was and why it worked. So this is how it works. Okay, so these cells are basically every single cell in our body are cells that cover our body. These affect our immune system, our adrenals. This affects our autoimmune system. This regulates how our body feels. This regulates if we sweat. This regulates our heart rate. This regulates how quickly we breathe. This regulates our digestive system. This regulates our blood flow. These neuropeptides basically run our entire body, and each one of those messengers are connected to our physical body, our emotional body, and our spiritual body. Okay, so all of our cells are connected. This is why it's so important, and this is why we've been talking about these three elements of our life, and we think they're separate, but they're actually completely connected. Okay, so basically when we hear about our adrenals, I don't know if you've ever heard about adrenal fatigue. So when you've been through a really stressful time for an extended period of time, you get what they call adrenal fatigue, which basically means the adrenaline that fuels your body essentially has been worn down. We are connected with fight and flight basically reactors. And so when we run along at a certain level, and then when things get stressed, we have an overdrive system in our body. So we then go into overdrive, which then uses up our adrenals. And so if we live our life in overdrive, then basically we are taxing our adrenals to the point that we start to feel this on a physical level, we start to feel this on an emotional level, we feel it on a spiritual level. So now that I've given you the bad news, how do we fix this? Okay, so basically what we have to understand is that these three things are important. So understanding that you need to feed yourself physically every day, and we get that because we get hungry, but also understanding that you need to feed your mind every day as well as your spirit every day. And so I heard kind of a really cute analogy once that I actually loved. And so we've all heard the term self-care, and we've talked about self-care in this course, but they said to look at self-care as almost like this is going to sound weird, but almost like an out-of-body experience. So let's say you're the mom and you're looking after the little toddler, and the little toddler is having a bad day, and you're like, oh, are you hungry? Have you eaten yet? Like, or have you just been snacking on gummy bears? Or do you need a nap? Are you tired? And it's like this guessing game with the toddler because their vocabulary isn't fully developed. And you're like, are you hungry? Are you tired? Do you need a hug? Do you need words of encouragement? Like, what do you need to feel better? And if we actually kind of step back and look at our personal self-care from the perspective of a mom looking after a toddler, we can then look back and go, okay, I am feeling, and whatever that is, it's like, did I eat properly today? When was the last time I actually put something positive into my brain, read something positive, read something uplifting, listened to music? When was the last time I fed my mind with something intelligent? When was the last time I fed my soul with something that brings me joy? And so to actually look at these elements of our life from a place of self-care to make sure we're giving ourselves all three things is absolutely powerful when you understand the connection. Okay, so here's another thing that you probably are aware of that I've come to definitely experience in my life is when you don't deal with emotional things on an emotional level, they're going to start showing up on a physical level. And we've all had that. And I talked a little bit about dealing with anxiety. And I mean, I've also had times in my life, again, during a really stressful time where I was dealing with, depression. And so these were all situations where for me, it was it was a physical response to an emotional situation. And so when you start to deal with the emotions on an emotional level, physical things on a physical level, spiritual things on a spiritual level, and all three of these things are connected, it's amazing what level of elevation you can bring your ability to function to. And I hope that makes sense, because for me, I loved learning this knowledge and digging into it. Okay, so it's Friday. I don't really have any homework for you this weekend other than I want you to start to become aware of your self-care on these three different levels. Be aware of how to look after yourself spiritually, look after yourself physically, and look after yourself emotionally. Okay, so we are going to have one more chat on Monday and then a wrap up on Tuesday. Monday we're going to talk about how to build a tribe and how to build a support system around you, so that if you're exhausted and you can't give yourself what it needs, how to have that community where you can actually lean on other people. Okay, I hope that helps, and I hope you have a great weekend.